Hi, this is the first episode in the ESG video series put on by AMT and IMTS. Um, where ESG is environmental, social, and governance, very popular topics these days throughout industry, throughout the country. Uh, we're going to start with the skilled workforce, which is absolutely essential to achieving all the things that the country needs. So I'm Harry Moser. I'm the founder and president of the uh, Reshoring Initiative, a nonprofit that brings manufacturing jobs back. I used to be president of Charmy, now called GF Machining Solutions. So I've got 40 or 50 years of doing this, and look forward to communicating with you. I give you a cat.
Hi, I'm Catherine Ross, Director of Education for Smart Force Development here at AMT, and I also have almost 15 years of workforce development experience in manufacturing. So I'm excited to chat with you, Harry. You want to just jump in? What would you say in terms of skilled workforce is so important when it comes to American competitiveness, supply chain, definitely a buzzword now, and just generally reshoring?
My objective is to balance the trade deficit, bring back 5 million manufacturing jobs uh, by making the U.S. competitive. And to bring that 5 million jobs back, we obviously need a higher quantity of workers, but also we need a higher quality of workers. The On the average, the U.S. workforce is not as well trained as, say, Germany's or Switzerland, and therefore they can pay a higher wage over there. They can attract more people. They can afford to train them better. And so we need really good people, really well trained, so we'll be competitive.
Okay, that sounds good to me. But before we look too far forward, let's put some context in here. So historically, how does the U.S. stack up against our competitors, against other countries in this space?
Yeah, the other countries, especially say the European countries, had a great tradition of apprenticeship for centuries, maybe millennia. The son would follow the father into metalworking or whatever it was, and therefore they built up this great tradition, this great training system that's still very strong through much of Europe and in some of the Asian countries. And the U.S., in contrast, obviously we don't have the history, but in addition, we tended to wing it a little bit. And then after the Second World War, we had this flood of hundreds of thousands of skilled immigrants coming in especially from Europe. And therefore, we didn't have the need to develop the apprenticeship system that they continued to strengthen over there. So that's left us, now that those people are retiring, with this huge gap, potentially millions of shortfall. And that's why we need to put a higher priority.
Yeah, absolutely agree. So I think there's certainly a role for government to get involved here. You mentioned apprenticeship, and has historically been a pretty bipartisan topic. So we at AMT, we definitely want to see more investment in apprenticeship across the US, particularly competency-based apprenticeship. The traditional model is all about rigid hours and checking boxes. And we want to see apprenticeships that are a bit more flexible and move more at the pace of industry. On top of that, we want to see federal policies that encourage the hiring of educators in the manufacturing space. Everybody talks about the wave of retirements in industry, and the shortage of new workers coming in, but that's also happening in education. There is an increasing amount of a gap between the amount to be taught and the amount of educators to teach it. And last but not least, and maybe the most important, we want to see the government incentivize schools to purchase advanced manufacturing tech equipment, hardware, software. It's a hefty bottom line running a manufacturing program at a high school or particularly a community college. So if federal incentives, state level incentive to get the latest technology inside the classroom so that our education system can be churning out folks who are really ready to hit the ground running when they start in the workplace.
Great point, Scott. From the reshoring, from my viewpoint, the reshoring initiative's viewpoint, we think we need to restore balance. The country has subsidized college loans, people to study English, history, philosophy, anthropology, whatever, at a time when maybe 40% of the people with those degrees don't get into jobs that require college degrees. So we have huge excesses of that category of training, and we have huge shortfalls of tool makers, welders, precision machinists. So we think the country should, for the next 10 years, shift massive resources from the liberal arts university system over to the manufacturing training system, because just to get us caught up again. Where we have had $1 trillion of loans for universities, we'd like to see loans for apprentices, so that the youth who's considering that can look at that and say, with that extra 10,000 a year maybe of loan from the government, I can afford the apprentice job and eventually be a great resource for the country. One of the things I'd also love to see the country do, on the Department of Labor and Department of Education websites, there's lots of bar charts that show income going up with number of degrees. We've all seen them, $1 million more lifetime income. I'm trying to get them to, in that bar chart where they have number of degrees, also show the average income of people who've passed an apprenticeship. And if we could get the guidance counselors to see that, I'm convinced more of the students would go our way. We'd have the team that we need.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So that's government. What can industry do in the meantime?
I think that companies have neglected this horrible. They cut back. They cut it out of their budget. They were very short-sighted, and they thought they could just hire somebody else, and it doesn't work because there's just not a pool there. So they need to just say, it's our, if we want to survive, we have to have an apprenticeship program. We have to train. And if they do that, it'll be okay. How about you, Kat? What would you like to see them do?
Oh, I totally agree. There's been kind of a just-in-time approach to workforce, and it's unfortunately not a one-trick solution, but embracing competency-based apprenticeship or work and learn opportunities for not just new employees, but incumbent employees. There's a lot of upskilling and reskilling that needs to be done with the new technologies that keep hitting the shop floor. Likewise, employers can lean into standards and credentials. There are national standards bodies that have set the measuring stick for what this particular job title or role should be competent at. Employers don't need to develop that model and develop those systems themselves. And then, by and large, employers really need to take a look at their workforce ecosystem. So how are they engaging their local communities? Are they partners with their local college or high school? Robotics clubs, those are a fantastic way, especially to get younger people interested in these career pathways. How can they get involved with one of those? Do they have a contact at their local workforce agency or their local apprenticeship office? And one that we were talking about the other day is rethinking the terminology that they're using in their recruitment. I was looking at some job listings recently, and one of the positions was a filtration and unloading operator. And I was like, wow, that screams, hire me. And it's essential. It's, undoubtedly important, vital role, but maybe let's rethink about how we are framing and presenting ourselves to our communities to draw in that new talent.
Yeah, I think there's some positive trends going on. For us, the U.S. is training more people. There's more certificates going out, NIMS, groups like that. So things are looking good. And at the same time, there are shortages in the other countries, because as the other countries, the Europeans, the Chinese, even as the populace has gotten rich, the youth don't want to go into manufacturing anymore. They've got sort of the American disease. So the others are sort of falling off a little bit, and we're picking up. So I'm looking optimistically at the future.
Yeah, there was a study just earlier this summer from Parsable that says the COVID-19 pandemic has actually positively impacted Generation Z's perception of manufacturing. You know, for the first time, for a lot of young people, they're seeing what manufacturing actually looks like on the news, in the media, on social media, and they're realizing, wow, this actually is key to everything that we do. It actually has a role in my life, and so I think that's a really exciting trend. And apprenticeships nationwide are on the rise. Manufacturing hasn't been as fast as some of the other industries, which is interesting because you consider we kind of started it back in, the pre-war era, but they are ticking up. So that's another positive opportunity for more employers to jump on that bandwagon and start giving employees new and incumbents that earn and learn opportunity.
So, in summary, I think the trends are it is extremely important. The trends are favorable, and if all the viewers will point out to all their friends that manufacturing is cool and it's a great career, good income, a lot of fun, then it'll be a wonderful future for manufacturing in the U.S. Thank you, Kat.
Very
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Harry.
Yeah.